Okay, so an event like this does not happen without sponsors, of which we have a bunch that I would like to thank right now. So to Kanapa Valley Farms, Primitive, Sensi, AG Marvels, Strategic Tax Planning, My Canna Jobs, and THC 123, Element, Data Financial, TSR Grow, and CLG Realty. Give it up one more time for them. And lastly, this event is brought to you by Cannabis 360. That is our group. We've been working for the past 2 years, 2.5 years in this space to make sure that we are building up our tech stack to help each and every single one of you not only reach your customers here and nationwide, but help build your brands, help connect with your customers, and help destigmatize this industry so that people can enjoy it the way in which we are all enjoying it. So please, if you would give a round of applause for Cannabis 360. And if you are ready, I am ready. Let's take a quick look at the agenda for today. We're going to start with real estate, and we're going to end with Calvin Johnson. You might have heard of him. And in between there'll be a bunch of amazing things that we are going to do. That is available on your table if you want to follow along with the agenda. So it is at this time I would like to invite my co-host up. You know him and you love him. Please, round of applause for Mr. Gus Burns.
Hello, everybody. I am Gus Burns. I am the statewide cannabis reporter for MLive, and I will also be moderating a couple of the panels today. So pleasure to be here. Welcome, everybody. Hope it's a great day.
And we will see you in a bit, my friend. Thank you for being here. One more time for Gus. All right. Our first event is going to be talking about real estate, so I would like you to help me welcome to the stage our 3 panelists. First, from Primitive, Mr. Rob Sims. Rob. Harry Barash from CLG Realty and Advisory Group. Harry. Over there. Thanks for coming. And then Becca Neal. Becca, welcome. How are you?
How are you?
Good. Have a seat, friends. All right, so we're talking about real estate, which I think for a lot of people in this space can be one of the more difficult things to navigate. But before we kind of get into the weeds, I'd love to kind of go from you, Harry, to you, Rob, and kind of talk about how you got into this space, how you got into the real estate part of the cannabis industry. And so, Harry, where did that start for you?
Sure. So I've been a commercial real estate agent for about 20 plus years, and was a caregiver for about 6 of those years at the end there, and so I got very acquainted with the cannabis industry and started a Facebook group called Michigan Cannabis Professionals about 3.5 years ago. Started to a very private group, very exclusive group, and that group grew and grew, and we're up to 7,500 members now. And I was able to kind of leverage my commercial real estate background with cannabis and got into the cannabis real estate business a couple of years ago exclusively. I left my retail practice behind and focused on cannabis, and that's kind of how I got to where I am. And a couple months ago, I partnered up with a gentleman by the name of Barton Morris, who owns the Cannabis Legal Group, and we started a cannabis real estate and advisory division under that flag, and CLG Realty Advisors. So that's where we're at.
It is a pleasure to have you.
Thank you for having me.
And Becca, for you, where did this start for you? Because you kind of have an interesting story about how you got here.
Yes, yeah. So I'm interesting enough in the real hospitality and healthcare sector, and so really my involvement in this conversation is like the brick and mortar and more or less the ordinances to get these communities on board for this type of real estate, right?
Sure.
So yeah, I own a wellness center in Grand Haven, Michigan, and yeah, we're just kind of developing a larger model elsewhere in the community and in the state, and I've kind of dealt with my own backlash in the community sector and trying to get municipalities on board to adopt ordinances to allow, businesses like mine to exist.
And we will get to that because I want to ask you that question. Rob, you were doing something before this, right? Weren't you?
Yeah, I was. For those that don't know, now I'm old, right? I'm pushing 40 now. I used to play for the Lions here in town, and the Seahawks. So, thank you. I was like 50 pounds ago, and I was a lot cooler back then. But But my transition into real estate, really is my transition out of the NFL. Most NFL players are frantically looking for purpose and what is next in life after they get done playing. Mine started with buying residential properties around our facility and renting them to my teammates. Cool thing about that is none of them knew, so I would hear them in the other locker complaining about the landlord this and the landlord's that, and that was me. And that transitioned into becoming part of the group that owns the naming rights for RE/MAX here in southeastern Michigan. We bought a title company called Complete Title, which I had the opportunity to be a president at and failed miserably as my first time managing people. And from there, we had an opportunity to acquire Full House Mortgage that was soon bought by RE/MAX International. And along the way, I had a lot of opportunities here in Detroit. So really I had a crash course in real estate from a lot of different angles, and it really propelled us into cannabis and looking for cannabis real estate when cannabis real estate got hot a few years ago.
And so, we'll kind of go back and forth. One of the things that you just said that I want to glom onto that isn't specifically real estate, but does kind of dovetail nicely is you said you failed at your first time managing people in this space. Yep. What did you learn from that, and how have you brought that into Primitive?
I learned that, I don't need to be perfect. In football, it was all about me playing at the highest level. If I gave a sack or if I gave a penalty, it haunted me in my dreams. And I think in Complete Title, I did the same thing, right? It was all about everything needed to be right. Everybody needed to be happy. It was my first time really managing folks. And in Primitive, I've kind of let that management kind of come to me, right? And I built a team around me that is strong enough to kind of pick up where I fail or pick up where, I have shortcomings. So I had to learn that. It's been, 6 or 7 years for me to understand that that's the way it needed to go. And I'm just really thankful for my team that they've been able to support me through that.
Awesome. So coming back to you, you kind of hit on a hot button topic, which is these municipalities and the ability to either be there or not be there. Totally. And so my question to you is, what has that experience been like for you? And then kind of the jump ball for all three of you is, for some of these municipalities that are doing the NIMBY, right, not in my backyard, will they see kind of the light in all of this as other places around Michigan are seeing these swells of income and jobs and tax bases and change their mind, and or is that not what's going to happen? So I'll start with you. What was the experience like? And then kind of to you two gentlemen, what do you think will be the radiance of that?
Totally. So I live in a community called Grand Haven.
I've heard of this place.
Yeah, it's gaining a lot of traction as far as some of the setbacks we've been dealing with. We adopted a medical ordinance in 2019, I believe, and we do have a property in which we bought to have retail. This was part of a model that I part of a wellness center. I have had that up since 2014, and I felt strongly about cannabis as a part of that model. And so I went about it as anyone would go, as far as finding a brick and mortar for their business. I looked for properties that were conducive to what I was wanting, and then realized really quickly that those ordinances I couldn't just do that. They picked my building and they told me where I would go. And so it boiled down to a lot of advocacy, getting involved in the community that you're in, understanding who they are and what they represent. And I was lucky enough to be in my own community. I lived there as well as had this practice here. And we had to secure property well before we were attempting to go at these communities and figure out what was appropriate for these zonings. And a lot of these buffers that they are expecting on these communities such as ours, we're really a conservative community at heart. And so they were establishing buffers as large as 2,500 feet from churches and schools and parks, and kind of setting the stage for what they felt was appropriate for these types of establishments to exist. And it's hard to watch that because it's suggesting that we're a threat. This type of this industry is somehow it's not appropriate, and so it's our job to say, hey, how is my consumption of cannabis any different from alcohol? And that's really what we're doing doing at this point is getting them to wage it out, and so now they're pushing us outside these areas of the community where it's like, is that fair?
Sure.
So communities like Muskegon, which is just over the bridge, I mean, they opened it up, and it was amazing because they kind of gave it like a free market feel, and so they're taking infrastructure that was gone, that was needed that love. I mean, these are red line tape communities, and so getting communities to understand, like, this is the benefit you have. You're taking roads and miles of roads and building infrastructure that's brand new, and you can allow them to figure out who's going to be the best. But so that was kind of what we've dealt with. We're in the middle of adopting an adult use ordinance, and so right now we're just waiting for the attorneys to kind of write up what they feel is appropriate for those regulatory requirements. And it's our job to advocate of what we want and how we think it's appropriate for our establishments to exist in our communities.
Awesome. So, Harry, kind of the jump off of that is, like, there are municipalities that are just, they're not into this, right? Your area of expertise, like, do you see them changing their mind as they see this infrastructure being built in other parts of Michigan, or are they just going to kind of be, this is not for us, right?
Yeah, well, there's more and more municipalities opting in. I think right now retail is really where there's the most attractiveness right now. Cultivation and processing. There's definitely plenty of that out there available. So they're seeing the tax dollars now after they issued the recent report of how much taxes were raised. So. I think that they're definitely, I'm seeing a lot of municipalities that are definitely opting in right now. And, the real question becomes is, how much can this industry support? Do we really need every municipality to opt in? Probably not. As long as there is enough of them out there within a reasonable drive time, really, I think really that should be the ultimate goal, is to have balance, and that, I think it's too late. I think the market's kind of oversaturated in many respects, but the cream will rise to the top, and there's nothing wrong with a competitive marketplace. I think it'll produce better operators, it'll produce better product, and may the best person and company win. But definitely more municipalities should be considering retail, and you're definitely starting to see it.
Awesome. So, Rob, one of the things, like I started out saying, like, this space tends to be the more confusing one. You're dealing with ordinances, and my guess is the consumer and the ordinance probably don't match up, right? I'm sure there are people in Grand Haven that would like to imbibe and the ordinance says no. What other sort of things should people be on the lookout if they're looking for real estate in this space?
I think this space in real estate, it was really important for us to be able to expand our place, right? The market is, a lot of people are playing for the market today, right? And they're just trying to get in and, have their piece. But for us, it was always about, like, how can we expand this and be nimble, because there were going to be so many things that were going to be thrown at us that we would have to switch or change. And I mean, I don't know how many times we've gone back to the drawing board with primitive, but a lot. I think for us, it is, you have to see around the corner a little bit and understand, like, where do you really see yourself? Where do you want to take it? And you just can't play for today. You got to play the long game here, right? This is no get rich quick. This is not, I'm going to get in here tomorrow and I'm going to make $1 million, right? This is something you got to be passionate about, a labor of love, and you got to think long term.
So then, to the two of you, like, when you're thinking about legacy or empire, whatever word you want to use, how do you think about real estate in that regard? Because you are buying for today, right? You're buying at supply and demand prices of today, but how do you build in that legacy mindset as you're building into the future?
I think for me, my mindset is always to legacy, right? I lost my father right when I got in the NFL, and I've been on this, like, quest to make sure, look, when my days are done, that I'm able to give my son and my daughter something that is they can be proud of, right? And a lot of people hear me say that, and they're like, well, in cannabis? Well, yeah, to me. because I do feel like I am looking around the corner and seeing the and building our brand to a place that's clean and is authentic and is something that my family and the community can stand behind. And I think real estate is it's a piece of that story, right? And it was, for us, it was the first piece of that story. So really just, I'm building for the future.
For you, Becca?
I resonate a lot with what he's saying, and my particular community I've been in, as much as I live there and I own it, I mean, we've been working on this ordinance for 4+ years. So yeah, you're in it for the long haul. You're trying to, you're trying to figure out what you want. And over the years, I've identified more and more what my overall goal is. And being in a healthcare hospitality mindset, it was